Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is hum. And today's verb was suggested by the viewer Luis. So thanks, Luis, for this suggestion. I want others to know if you're watching and you have an idea of a verb you'd like me to discuss, please leave me a comment. I enjoy reading your suggestions. But now let's move on and look at how we use this verb. The verb hum can be used in a few different ways. One way might mean to make a low, steady, continuous sound. And many times people think of the sound of a bee, kind of a sort of that sort of sound. So kind of low, steady. It's usually not a super loud thing, but something kind of softer, and that idea of it being continuous is important. A second way the verb hum gets used can mean to sing with your lips closed. So maybe you've done this. I am not a great singer, so I'm going to ask for your forgiveness as I try and demonstrate kind of a right? So you're making noise, you're maybe thinking of a particular song or a tune, and kind of again, it's like you're singing, but your lips are closed. A third way you might hear hum used can mean to be in a great state of activity. So you might hear of a certain event humming, right? It might mean there are a lot of people are busy, they're active at this particular event. A fourth way you might hear hum used can mean to run smoothly. So sometimes at work, if you have some kind of project, right, and you're making progress, it's going smoothly, right? You might say it's humming, it's moving along. For now, you should know that hum is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, you need to double the ending consonant before you add ing. And the reason we do that is we have a one-syllable verb here, and our verb is in the pattern of consonant, vowel, consonant. This is something we see a lot in English. Anytime we're adding a suffix to a one-syllable consonant, vowel, consonant ending word, we're going to double that last consonant before adding a suffix with a vowel. So our progressive form of the verb is going to be pronounced humming, humming, right? And our past tense and participle forms of verb, again, are going to require us to double that in because we're adding an ed suffix, another suffix that begins with a vowel. Now, our base verb, hum, ends in a voiced m sound. This means when I add the ed ending, I'm just going to make a d sound, and I'm not going to add an extra syllable as I say it. So the past tense and the participle forms of the verb should sound like this: hummed, hummed. Okay. Now let's talk about a phrasal verb you might encounter. That phrasal verb is to hum with. And you're going to see a connection back to some of the earlier definitions we've looked at. Hum with might describe something being filled with a low, steady, continuous sound. An example of this might be, the room hummed with several copiers continuously operating, right? So you might be able to imagine or picture an environment where we have these large copier printing machines, right? And the sort of constant noise it's making as they are all running. A second way to use hum with, again, is that to be busily active. An example of this: the classroom hummed with busy kindergartners, first and second graders, right? So maybe all of these students are in some type of summer school program. They're all being active and working or are engaged in some kind of activity. Now let's continue using our verb of the day in a couple different verb tenses. Today we're going to practice the past progressive and the simple past tense. Let's start with the past progressive. Now, many teachers and textbooks, even other YouTube videos, will call this the past continuous. That's just fine. It means exactly the same thing. We use the past progressive or past continuous to talk about an action that was ongoing during a period of time in the past. The reason I like saying past progressive is that two P's can help you remember that you need two parts to make your verb. We're going to be using a past form of be and then our ing form of the verb in the affirmative. Now, be is always a special verb, and there are two forms of it in the past tense. So this is a verb tense where we must pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, he, she, or it, we'll use was and then our ing form of the verb. But if our subject is you, we, or they, we'll use were and then the ing form of the verb. Let's take a look at an example here. The Port of Baltimore was humming along as it handled a record level of cargo in 2023. So here we're talking about a place where the ocean meets the land, right? This port, and many container ships, these massive ships with lots of cargo or things that can be manufactured or maybe already have been manufactured. Those things are arriving at this particular spot, right? And so this action was ongoing. And if you follow the news, you might know one of these ships hit a bridge near this port. And unfortunately, I think there were about 6 people who passed away in this accident, and it has disrupted this port's ability to have large ships go in and out, in and out. So this was an action that was ongoing. It has been interrupted. Now let's talk about making negative past progressive sentences. To do this, again, we pay attention to our subject. We'll use either was not and then the ing form of the verb, or were not and then the ing form. Of course, we can combine was not into the contraction wasn't, or were not into the contraction weren't. Let's take a look at an example sentence. The area wasn't humming with the demand, so they decided to move the restaurant to a different part of town. So here, this area just wasn't active. Not a lot of people looking for a place to eat, right? Now, let's talk about making a yes or no question in the past progressive. To do this, start with was or were, whichever form matches your subject, that subject comes next, then the ing form the verb. Here's another example. Were you humming while you were cleaning? Right? So here we're kind of asking about these two activities. Were they happening at the same time? Now, let's move on and talk about sentences in the simple past tense. We use this verb tense to stress that we have a completed action at a known point in the past. And the nice thing about making sentences in the simple past tense is that our pattern stays the same no matter what our subject is. So in the affirmative, we'll have our subject, and then we'll use the ed form of our verb since hum is a regular verb. Let's take a look at an example. The business hummed along for 20 years before the pandemic. Okay, so again, that idea of kind of being busy with activity, right? Usually a good thing. Let's talk about making negative simple past tense sentences. To do this, we start with a subject, we use did not, and then the base verb. Okay, so notice I'm not using the ed form here. Here's another example. He didn't hum made-up tunes to himself as a youngster. Now, I saw a sentence very similar to this as I was reading about a new artist, a new songwriter in particular, and there were numerous references to many creative types, people who go on to be very successful songwriters who just kind of their mind works in music, and that they would kind of sing and make up songs to themselves as a youngster. This particular artist didn't do that. Okay, now let's make a yes or no question in the simple past tense. To do this, start with did, then you're going to have your subject, then your base verb. Let's take a look at another example. Did our old ceiling fan hum like this? This question would go back to that first meaning of the verb. So we're talking about kind of that low continuous sound, right? So someone here might be trying to figure out, is this normal? Is this right? Am I noticing something a little different? Now, the thing I always love to point out to people, notice the only time I was using that ed form of the verb is in the affirmative. I do not use it in negative or yes or no questions. Keep that in mind as you're writing and speaking. Now, let's move on and talk about some words that are related to our verb hum. The first word we're going to talk about is just the noun form of this word. The noun hum has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation. Many times when we use this word as a noun, we're talking about some low, steady, continuous sound. So the meaning there connects back to our first definition of the verb. You might hear somebody ask, can you hear that hum? Where is it coming from? Right? So they want to know, kind of, do you hear that low continuous sound? Another word you might encounter is the adjective hummable. That suffix able can help you remember able or capable. Here, many people use this word to mean able to be easily hummed. An example of this in a sentence might be, the composer has said that he prefers to write hummable tunes. Tunes is another word for song here. So this particular songwriter is saying, I want to write things that people can along with. One last word for us to discuss today, and I've got a picture to help us understand it. The next word is hummingbird, a noun. This is a small, nectar-feeding tropical American bird that's able to hover, right? So it can stay in the air. It doesn't have to be moving in a particular direction. So it can hover, and it can also fly backward. An example of this word in a sentence might be, we made a special sugar water solution to attract hummingbirds. So if you like this kind of bird, for many people, they don't put bird seed out, which might attract many other kinds of birds. But again, these types of birds feed on slightly different things. So people will kind of make sugar water, and that can really attract this kind of bird. They are also very, very small most of the time. Very beautiful to see. Thanks again to Luis for suggesting today's verb. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day.